Hey, tonight you're stepping into a tomb. It's not the tomb of a king, but of a creature that stood over 10 feet tall. No one remembers its name. No one knows what species it belonged to. But its skeleton, if it was truly human, could rewrite the entire history of Homo sapiens. Before you descend into the quiet darkness, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button, but only if you genuinely love what we're doing here. And don't forget to comment with where and what time you're watching this video from. Now, dim the lights, turn on a small fan for some gentle background noise. And let's begin our journey for the night, a trip deep underground where giant bones are waiting for you. You step into the year 1890 in the small village of Castelnau in the south of France. The cold winter air turns your breath to mist, and the sound of the wind whistling through the forest feels like someone is watching you from a distance. Deep in the earth is where Georges Vacher de la Pouge, a renowned anthropologist, is excavating a prehistoric grave. But what he finds isn't just a trace of humanity, it's proof of something impossible. Inside the stone tomb, 3 strange bone fragments are revealed, including a piece of a femur, part of a tibia, and an unusually large section of an upper arm bone. You lean in for a closer look and realize their size is double that of a normal human's. The femur is 5.5 inches thick with a circumference of over 6 inches, and the estimated height, over 11.5 feet tall. You swallow hard. Lapouge announced his discovery in the journal La Nature. He didn't hesitate to declare that these were human bones. Not of a modern human, but of a very tall race of ancient humans who lived sometime during the Bronze Age. The world was shaken. Part of it was fear, part was excitement. And the rest? They were skeptical. The bone fragments were sent to the University of Montpellier, where the most brilliant minds in biology, anatomy, and paleontology gathered to study them. Their conclusion was that these could be human bones, but they might also be the result of an abnormal growth condition known as gigantism. However, no recorded case had ever reached such a size. Things got even stranger a few years later when other large skulls and oversized bones were discovered in the nearby Millau region. They were sent to the French Academy of Sciences, and then they vanished. There were no further publications and no re-examinations. To this day, the complete Castelnau skeleton does not exist in any scientific collection. You suddenly feel a chill run down your spine. The modern academic world has chosen to remain silent. But the villagers of Castelnau have not. They still tell their children stories of a cave where the giant once lived, and that kids used to hear deep rumbles echoing from within the mountain. Maybe it was just thunder, or maybe it was the genetic memory of a forgotten species. But it doesn't stop there. Throughout the 20th century, vague reports continued to surface, from giant bones in Greece and Peru to North America. But most were dismissed as hoaxes, religious scams, or fakes created for money. But did you know that in 2022, anthropologist Catherine Hacken proposed a surprising theory? She suggested those bones were actually from ancient bears, misidentified due to a lack of anatomical knowledge in the 19th century. It's hard to believe, but is it plausible? Modern scientists have every right to be skeptical, but they can't deny one thing. No one has ever re-examined the bone samples with modern DNA analysis technology. The only evidence of the Castelnau case that exists today is an article from over 130 years ago. You're starting to understand that sometimes history isn't hidden. It's forgotten or traded for the convenience of the academic world. And then you find yourself standing in the cave. On the wall is an ancient handprint, far higher than any adult could reach. A piece of bone juts out from the rock, and you feel that it's warmer than you expected. It seems something here has not yet found its rest. So, what if giant beings really did exist? Would we rewrite our entire evolutionary line? Or would we just bury them deeper, once again? And are you ready for what's next? A tomb filled with mercury, armed with automatic crossbows, and untouched for over 2,000 years. You're standing amidst the rolling green hills of Shanxi, China. The wind rustles through the vast fields, but everything is strangely silent, as if even nature is holding its breath. Before you is an artificial mound, with no signs, no tourists. But beneath the earth, where you're slowly descending in your imagination, lies a world that for over 2,000 years, no one has dared to touch. This is the mausoleum of Sacsayhuamán, the first emperor to unify China. It's a tomb that has been compared to a hidden planet, containing not just the body of one man, but a form of madness legitimized by absolute power. You imagine yourself wading through the damp, cold darkness, not in an ordinary crypt, but in a miniature version of ancient China, recreated underground. According to the historian Sima Qian, the tomb contains rivers of mercury, a ceiling adorned with pearls representing the stars, and a model of the entire kingdom on the floor, complete with palaces, concubines, officials, and even living people who were buried alive to serve the emperor in the afterlife. This isn't a fairy tale. Modern geological surveys have detected extremely high concentrations of mercury in the tomb area, matching the description from over 2,000 years ago. And even though ground-penetrating radar has confirmed the existence of a massive structure beneath the soil, no one, and I mean no one, dares to excavate the central chamber. The reason isn't superstition, it's science. When archaeologists excavated the Terracotta Army in 1974, the initial vibrant colors faded within minutes of being exposed to the air. If that happened to soldier statues, imagine what would happen to the lacquered maps, ancient paper, or silk inside the tomb chamber. They could turn to dust in seconds. And then there are the automatic traps. Ancient texts record that the tomb is rigged with numerous automatic crossbow traps, ready to fire arrows at any intruder. Sounds far-fetched, doesn't it? But if ancient people could manipulate mercury, embed pearls in the ceiling, and create an entire kingdom out of clay, why couldn't they build traps? And there's something even stranger. The government's silence. Despite advanced survey techniques, China has always been very cautious with information about the tomb. Radar data is not fully published. Excavation is strictly forbidden. Even Chinese scholars must get government permission to conduct research. This isn't just about preservation. For many, this is a sacred tomb, and disturbing it would be an insult to their ancestors, a cultural and spiritual taboo. Sacsayhuamán wasn't just a king, he was a symbol of power, unity, and fear. You stand silently in the square before the Terracotta Army. Each warrior has a different face, so detailed that you can tell they were once real people. Over 700,000 laborers built this mausoleum. And according to legend, many of them were buried alive after its completion, so no one could reveal the secrets within. Professor Duan Qingbo, who has led many surveys of the area, once stated, "We know there are secrets in there, but our preservation techniques are not good enough. If we excavate, we won't just destroy artifacts, we'll destroy belief." However, some believe the real reason isn't just about preservation, but that the contents are too dangerous for the world to know. More extreme theories suggest the tomb contains ancient knowledge that surpasses its time, holds evidence of contact with extraterrestrial civilizations, or contains secret archives about unrecorded dynasties. One researcher once said, "If we open Sacsayhuamán's tomb, we won't just find history. We might cause the collapse of what we believe to be history." You take a deep breath. In the darkness of earth and time, you hear something. It's not the wind. It's the sound of silence, a silence so absolute it becomes terrifying. What's buried below isn't just a person, it's a symbol of absolute power, a power that must not be awakened. So, should we excavate the tomb of Sacsayhuamán? Is it an archaeological rite or a curse postponed? And if we do open it, are we ready to face what's inside? Next, we'll travel to the cold lands of Siberia, where one of the greatest figures in human history, Genghis Khan, was buried in a tomb that remains unfound, and those who have searched for it have not returned. You're riding a horse across the Mongolian steppe, where the sky seems endless and the wind sings ancient songs. There are no landmarks, no trails, just a sea of grass, distant mountains, and a strange stillness. But somewhere here, amidst these millions of untouched acres, lies a tomb that hasn't been found in 800 years. It's the tomb of Genghis Khan, the man who founded the largest contiguous empire in human history. A man who once made all of Europe tremble, yet vanished without a trace. Did you know that no map records the location of his tomb? No ancient text mentions the exact site. And strangest of all, even his own descendants don't know where he's buried. Legend says that after Genghis Khan died during a campaign in northern China in 1227, his escort carried his body back to Mongolia, killing every witness they encountered along the way to keep the secret absolute. After the burial, they either committed suicide or were executed, ensuring no living person knew the Göbekli tomb. You hold your breath. 1,000 horses were said to have been run over the grave to erase all traces. Another version of the story claims a river was diverted to bury the tomb underwater. A more poignant legend tells of a mother camel buried with Genghis Khan, so she would return to the grave each year, helping his family find their ancestor. None of the details match, but they all share a common theme: protecting the tomb with death and living memory passed down through folklore. Marco Polo lived during the reign of Genghis Khan's grandson, Kublai Khan, but even he didn't know where the great conqueror's tomb was. In the secret history of the Mongols, only the year of his death is recorded, not the burial place. For such a monumental figure, this lack of information is itself the most significant clue. You start to feel that something is very different here. Genghis Khan, a conqueror, a ruthless ruler, chose to disappear like dust in the wind. In recent years, modern archaeologists have used every available technology, including drones, satellite imagery, ground-penetrating radar, AI-powered map processing, and even crowdsourcing from thousands of volunteers to search the Burkhan Khaldun region, the sacred mountain where Genghis Khan once prayed and is believed to have been born. But every excavation attempt has been stopped by the local people themselves. Why? Because for Mongolians, Genghis Khan is not an object of study. He is an object of worship. He is their greatest ancestor, the soul of the nation, the embodiment of the eternal blue sky. To violate his tomb is not just a cultural insult, it's a declaration of war against the national spirit. Still, you can't help but wonder, why maintain such absolute secrecy? Some theories suggest that Genghis Khan's tomb contains legendary treasures from across the Mongol Empire, from China and Persia to Kiev. Others speak of top-secret documents or evidence of political and religious alliances between ancient empires that, if revealed, could change the course of Central Asian history. One legend even claims that archaeological teams who secretly entered the sacred area were cursed, with many disappearing mysteriously, suffering accidents, or dying from bizarre causes during geological experiments. In 2000, a team of American scientists planned to excavate a part of the steppe using drones and vehicles equipped with ground-penetrating devices. But just days after setting up their equipment, hundreds of nomadic herders appeared and blocked their path with their horses. No weapons, no threats, just a firm gaze that said, no. This land doesn't belong to history books. It belongs to the spirit. You leave the steppe, but your mind is still drawn back. On a moonless night, amidst the sound of the wind blowing like a silent beast, you feel that perhaps not finding the tomb is the highest form of preservation. We always want to touch the past, but there are parts of history that, if uncovered too soon, would shatter the balance our ancestors fought to maintain. And what do you think about this? A tomb sealed for fear of destroying the truth. A tomb never opened, and a tomb no one knows. 3 of the most powerful men of the ancient world all chose silence beneath the earth. Next, you'll step into a structure that isn't a tomb, but an entire city underground. No one ever recorded its existence. No one knows who built it, and it's so perfect that it defies modern understanding. You're standing in a green field in Longyou County, Zhejiang Province, China. It looks unremarkable, an old pond, a few ducks swimming around, the gentle sounds of rural life. But then, you hear a story. A local farmer, wanting to raise fish, hired people to pump the water out of this pond. And what emerged from beneath the water wasn't mud and rock, but a city. The year was 1992. As the water was drained from the pond, a massive, perfect space was revealed. It featured sheer walls over 100 feet high, carved as if by machine, with vaulted ceilings and stone pillars arranged in parallel, curving like a modern temple. You step down. Every surface, from the floor to the walls, is covered in parallel, wave-like carvings that run seamlessly without any deviation, interruption, or any sign of messy human handiwork. It's as if someone used a giant, ultra-precise blade to cut through the mountain. You imagine this scene not as a single cave, but as a colossal architectural complex of 24 interconnected underground caverns, like a labyrinth. All share the same technique, the same decorative motif. They have high walls, vaulted ceilings, and flat floors, with a precision so exact that laser measurements show deviations of only a few millimeters. Now you start to feel uneasy. Who built them? No one knows. Why were they built? No one knows. Did anyone ever live there? There are no traces of human activity or burials, no ash, no bones, no pottery, and most importantly, not a single word in thousands of years of Chinese history mentions this structure. You might think, maybe this is a modern construction. But from the erosion marks on the stone walls, archaeologists estimate the caves are over 2,000 years old, dating back to the Qin or Western Han dynasties, which means they are contemporary with Emperor Qin Shi Huang. Wait a minute. An empire could create the Great Terracotta Army, and at the same time someone or something built a massive underground city but left no record of it in the history books? A team of engineers estimated that creating just one such cave would take a single laborer about 6 years of continuous work. Multiply that by 24 caves, and you're talking about roughly 1,000 full-time workers for 20 years. And no one mentioned it? You run your hand over the stone surface and are surprised by its cold smoothness, like glazed ceramic. You look up at the ceiling, where massive stone pillars curve down like the arches of an ancient temple. Then you quietly ask yourself, if this was a granary, where is the ventilation system or the drainage? If it was a shelter from war, why are there no separate rooms or living supplies? If it was a royal tomb, where are the burials and relics? And if it was a place for meditation, why build it so deep and miles long? Some Western scholars suggest that Longyou might have been a secret ritual center, like Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, built not for living, but to connect humans with a higher intelligence. Another prominent theory is that this was an architectural databank of a forgotten civilization, where construction techniques reached a level of perfection that was far ahead of its time. It's worth repeating. The rock base is incredibly hard and could only have been carved with extremely sharp tools or a technique like laser abrasion, which we have never found. A few more daring individuals lean in a different direction. Longyou wasn't built. It was cut out by an ancient technology that we still can't explain today, or by the hands of beings not of our species. Sounds crazy? But are you sure that what we currently believe is reasonable is really the whole truth? And so, Longyou continues to lie beneath the rice paddies, silent and undisputed, a magnificent but anonymous creation. No crown, no famous general, no inscriptions, a city that no one knew existed. A city built by who? And what do you think would happen if tomorrow a structure like this were discovered, but in a deeper place, with images not of waves, but of words? Next, you'll be taken to Lebanon, where stone blocks larger than a Boeing airplane lie waiting for an explanation. And the question isn't, what are they doing there, but how were they put there? You're standing in Baalbek, Lebanon. Before you are blocks of stone, no, to be more precise, gigantic stone ships, each nearly 65 feet long and weighing up to 1,200 tons. You're not mistaken, that number is twice the weight of a Boeing 747. The hot Middle Eastern wind blows through your hair. The harsh sunlight makes the dust of time seem to glow. And you ask yourself, how did ancient people, without cranes, without steel, lift, moved, and place these blocks with almost perfect precision? Baalbek, also known as Heliopolis in Roman times, is a massive temple complex. But what makes it most extraordinary lies in its foundation. 3 colossal stone blocks, known as the trelithon, placed in a straight line on an ancient wall. On top of this, the Temple of Jupiter was built by the Romans. But here's the problem. The Romans never claimed to have built those 3 stone blocks, which means someone else did it before them. You lean down. The stone surface is smooth, with no cracks, no signs of ropes or messy chisel marks. Each block is so close to the next that you couldn't slip a razor blade between them. So how were they raised more than 23 feet in the air and arranged as if someone were playing with Lego bricks? Mainstream science offers several theories, including the classic idea that the stones were pulled using pulleys, wheels, and human power. Another suggests a hydraulic method, where the stones were floated on water and then moved through man-made canals. There's also the earthen ramp theory, which proposes building giant slopes to drag each block up. But the problem is that the terrain at Baalbek doesn't make this easy. Such ramps would need to be hundreds of yards long, and the ground here couldn't support a 1,200-ton weight without collapsing. And you should know this. To this day, no modern crane has dared to move those 3 stone blocks. In 2014, archaeologists found a 4th stone block, weighing over 1,600 tons, still in the quarry a few hundred yards away. This means the ancients managed to cut it, but they couldn't move it. The question arises, if they had moved the other 3, why did they abandon the 4th? Or conversely, did they never move it because it wasn't a human job? Some more daring scholars propose the existence of a prehistoric civilization with technology beyond its time, capable of using vibrations, sound frequencies, or even magnetic levitation to move large objects. Sound fantastical? But ancient cultures have described techniques for lightning stone using chanting or mystical instruments. The Inca priests, ancient Egyptians, and even Tibetan engravings show traces of vibrations making objects fly. Maybe it's just a metaphor. Or maybe it's technical documentation encoded in symbolic language. You stand in the temple courtyard. The sun casts long shadows on the towering stone columns, nearly 65 feet high, once part of the greatest temple of Jupiter in the Roman Empire. But you know that the truly extraordinary thing isn't what's above, but what's below, where ancient hands laid a foundation that no one can explain. The Phoenicians, the ancient Canaanites, the Romans, all left their mark here. But none claimed to have placed the 3 trilithon blocks. Perhaps because they themselves didn't know who did it. And the most surprising thing? Not a single text, not a single ancient handwritten record ever mentioned the existence of those 3 stone blocks in administrative documents. An infrastructure project that could shake an empire, and yet no one recorded it? You start to feel that, like the other mysteries, what's truly frightening isn't what's too big, but what's too perfect yet completely silenced. An archaeologist once whispered upon leaving Baalbek, "We have built so many things on top of what we will never understand." So what really happened at Baalbek? A wild project abandoned in time? A testament to timeless wisdom? Or a message from a hand that wasn't human? And if you think Baalbek is the peak of mystery, just wait for the next chapter. A stone not placed but left behind midway, like an unfinished project of the Egyptian gods. A work that was never completed, but is enough to baffle all modern engineers. You're in Aswan, in southern Egypt. The scorching sun beats down on the red granite, one of the hardest types of stone known to man. The air is dry and silent. Everything seems frozen in time. And you're looking into a time capsule. The largest unfinished obelisk in the world, a stone pillar left right in the middle of its quarry. You lean down. It's nearly 138 feet long, 13 feet wide, and weighs about 1,200 tons, the equivalent of 200 adult elephants. It's not just a rock. It's a complete obelisk, still attached to the bedrock, as if someone was in the middle of carving it and then vanished without a trace. The question immediately rings in your head. Who had the ambition to erect a stone block this heavy? And why didn't they finish it? The ancient Egyptians were famous for their ability to create obelisks, towering pointed pillars, symbolizing the rays of the sun god Ra. They were symbols of power, connecting heaven, earth, and the divine. This Aswan obelisk is believed to have been commissioned by Pharaoh Hatshepsut in the 15th century BCE. But when a crack appeared during the quarrying process, the project was immediately abandoned. No one dared to continue. But was that crack really the only reason? You look around. The tool marks are regular, repetitive, as if someone used modern mechanical tools. But archaeologists insist that the tools of that time were just dolerite stones, which are harder than granite and used to pound away small pieces. This means that to carve out such a large obelisk from raw stone would have taken decades, thousands of workers, and absolute precision. No deviation of a few degrees, no warping by a few millimeters. So, was it really made by hand? Modern engineers have not been able to come up with a feasible plan for erecting such a heavy block. Even with the most advanced industrial cranes, just transporting the obelisk from the quarry to its destination would be an extreme challenge. So how did the ancient Egyptians do it? Did they dig deep trenches and erect the obelisk from below? Did they use ancient hydraulic lifting forces? Or, as some more extreme theories suggest, did they use vibrational force fields or sound frequencies? Egyptian legends speak of the Netjeru, ancient gods who came from the sky, bringing with them knowledge and technology, only a small part of which has been preserved in texts. Some historians suggest that obelisks were not merely symbols, but energy-receiving stations between humans and the cosmos, like ancient antennas. Perhaps the Aswan obelisk was abandoned not because of the crack, but because it didn't function correctly? Or maybe it was never intended for human use. You touch the stone surface. It's cool and flawless. No one dared to completely cut it from the earth. No one dared to raise it, and no one knows, if one day it were actually erected, what would happen? An archaeologist once said, "The unfinished obelisk is a question mark in the heart of time." It both proves the extraordinary ability of the ancients and sets a limit on our understanding. You leave the Aswan quarry with more than one question. Perhaps this monument was never meant to be erected, not because of failure, but because it was destined for another age. And if you think this is the pinnacle of ancient stone engineering, then wait for the next chapter. A massive temple carved directly from a single block of mountain rock. Not by building up, but by taking away. And the bizarre thing? No one knows how long it took them. But it appeared in just 18 years. You're standing among the Ellora Hills in Maharashtra, India. The weather is hot, the ground is dry, and the air is thick with the smell of mountain rock. In front of you is not a temple built of bricks or assembled stones, but a structure carved directly from a single basalt mountain. Its name is Kailasa. You walk through the gate. On either side are massive stone columns, statues of elephants, lions, the god Vishnu, all not assembled but kept intact with the original bedrock. Every pattern, every dome, every corridor was carved from the top down, with no errors, no joints. This temple wasn't built up, it was taken away, piece by piece in a precise, synchronized, and perfect order. Can you imagine this? To create Kailasa, people had to remove about 400,000 tons of rock. There were no cranes, no trucks, no explosives, no lasers, only hammers, chisels, pulleys, and the human mind. Sound like a myth? Wait until you hear the construction time. According to inscriptions, the Kailasa temple was completed in only about 18 years, during the reign of King Krishna I in the 8th century AD. Wait a minute. 18 years? Let's break it down. 400,000 tons of rock in 18 years is about 60 tons per day. With primitive tools, they would have had to quarry, transport, and process about 1 ton of rock every hour, without rest and without error. And even stranger, there are no technical documents, no blueprints, no explanations of how they did it. Some modern architects claim, even with modern CAD technology and CNC cutting machines, replicating the Kailasa temple would take decades and cost hundreds of millions of dollars. The question becomes an obsession. What did the ancients have that we don't? Theories abound. Some suggest a form of 4D sculptural thinking, where instead of building part by part, they visualized the complete structure within the rock and simply carved away the excess. Others propose sound frequency technology, questioning if they knew how to soften the rock with special vibrational frequencies. And then there's the idea of assistance from another intelligence. Not a few Indian scholars allude to beings from the sky, as in the Vimana epics, who provided guidance or support. But perhaps what gives you the biggest shiver isn't the technique, but the artistic message. Inside the temple, you see carvings depicting the battle between the god Shiva and Ravana, the emergence of parallel universes, and images of metaphysical human figures flying and splitting energy. You ask yourself, is this purely religious? Or is it a form of knowledge map encoded in sculpture? And then you remember something. Kailasa is not the only temple in the Ellora complex. It is number 16 of 34 caves, temples, and monasteries belonging to 3 different religions: Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism, all coexisting in the same mountain. This makes you think, Is this not just a structure, but a declaration of humanity? A message left for the future that we were once united, once did the impossible, and then lost it. A scholar once stood silently for hours before Kailasa and whispered, "Maybe we don't understand them, but it's clear they understood something we have never imagined." You leave Ellora with an indescribable feeling. Amidst that eternal stone temple, you feel small, fragile, and completely ignorant. And just when you think you've seen it all, get ready to step into the next part, a strange black sarcophagus unearthed in Alexandria. Inside was a red liquid that sent shivers down the world's spine, and 3 skeletons piled on top of each other in a bizarre posture. They were pleased not to open it. You're in the city of Alexandria, Egypt. Beneath the modern dust, the old buildings, and the chaotic sound of car horns lies a crossroads of 2 worlds, ancient Greece and mysterious Egypt. And on a day in July 2018, as workers were preparing to build an apartment building, they discovered something no one expected. A large stone slab, weighing nearly 30 tons, lay silent 16 feet underground. It had no patterns, no inscriptions, no decorative motifs, just a stark, cold, jet-black stone sarcophagus. Immediately, the eyes of the archaeological world turned here. The sarcophagus was nearly 9 feet long, large enough to hold a Greek warrior or an ancient Egyptian general. But what was surprising wasn't its size, but its absolute darkness. Royal coffins were usually elaborately decorated with the pharaoh's name, protective spells, and divine symbols. But this one? Not a single mark. No blessings, no patterns, no identity. Just solid black stone. The reason everyone was so excited was simple. If this was the tomb of Alexander the Great, the founder of Alexandria, it would be the greatest archaeological discovery of the century. His body has never been found. But as soon as the news spread, social media began to buzz with something else. A curse. A tweet went viral, shared hundreds of thousands of times. "Don't open the sarcophagus. You will awaken something that should not be awakened." And then, they opened it anyway. On July 19, 2018, under the supervision of the Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities, the 15-ton stone lid was lifted. There was no magical light, no gold-wrapped mummy, no treasure. Instead, a foul-smelling red liquid poured out, followed by a heavy putrid odor that made the entire archaeological team back away. You imagine yourself standing there in the scorching Alexandria summer, watching that liquid spread across the stone floor. It was a mixture of sewage that had seeped in from a nearby restroom, combined with decomposed flesh and iron oxide from the stone coffin, creating a thick, bloodstone solution as dark red as rust. Inside the sarcophagus were 3 human skeletons, not laid out neatly like in royal tombs, but piled on top of each other chaotically, as if they had been thrown in. There was no gold, no amulets, only a bronze arrowhead lodged in the eye socket of one skull. An anthropologist noted, they weren't buried like nobility. They were stuffed in like criminals. Immediately, the internet went wild. This is a vampire's tomb. It's a prison for an ancient demon. The red liquid is ritual blood. Don't let anyone drink it. Believe it or not, there was a petition on change.org that read, "Let us drink the sarcophagus water." Over 30,000 people signed it. Science says it was a natural decomposition phenomenon. But what does your gut tell you? Many historians have looked back at ancient texts. There are some Greek legends about sealed prison tombs, not to protect the dead, but to imprison souls that were not allowed to be reincarnated. In ancient Egypt, black stone was often used to prevent the soul from escaping the body. And here we have a jet-black stone sarcophagus with no markings, buried deep and sealed tightly with mortar. It seems no one wanted it to be opened. One scholar commented, "This sarcophagus was not built to honor death. It was built to imprison something." You can laugh. You can dismiss it. But look again. 3 people, dead in an unusual posture. A red liquid never before seen in any excavation. An absolute silence with no identity, no symbols. And then you think, what if there was an ancient burial system, not for honor, but for concealment? What if there was a metaphysical prison buried underground where only stone was heavy enough to keep a soul from rising? You don't have to believe, you just have to wonder. And in the next part, you won't be in Egypt or India anymore, but in Turkey, where a temple existed before agriculture, writing, or the wheel. A A structure with no roof, but with memories of visitors from the sky. You're standing among the wind-swept hills of Urfa in southeastern Turkey. There are no pyramids, no Nile River, no humid jungles, just dry earth, wind, and time. And then you see them. T-shaped stone pillars, massive, several feet thick and up to 20 feet tall, arranged in perfect circles. You are at Göbekli Tepe, the oldest known architectural structure on Earth. Its age, 11,600 years old. That's before writing, before the wheel, before agriculture, and almost 6,000 years before Stonehenge. You step into the center of a stone circle, designed with a precision that seems to come from modern simulation software. On each pillar are intricate carvings of lions, gazelles, foxes, birds, wild boars, reptiles, and even creatures of unidentifiable species. This isn't simple pottery or primitive drawings. This is symbolic sculpture. It has a language. And then you realize, the people who built this place were not primitive at all. They were architects, astronomers, and theologians. They understood geometry, balance, symmetry, and abstract thought. Archaeologists were shocked when they discovered Göbekli Tepe in 1994. It overturned all foundational theories about social evolution. Previously, it was believed that the progression was agriculture, then settlement, then society, and finally religion. But Göbekli Tepe suggests the opposite. Belief led to society, which then led to agriculture. In other words, humans may have built temples even before they learned how to farm. You feel dizzy from the weight of this implication. If that's true, then who sparked that sacred need? And where did they learn to create such a complex structure? A scholar once said, Göbekli Tepe wasn't just a place of worship, it was humanity's first school. And then, the strangest thing of all, why was it deliberately buried? The entire structure, after existing for thousands of years, was intentionally covered with earth and stones by ancient people. Carefully, meticulously. Not destroyed, not demolished, but buried as if to protect it. What would make a civilization which had already achieved such an astonishing level of architecture decide to bury its own legacy? Was it fear? Were they fleeing? Or was it a sign of a reboot? Some bold theories suggest that Göbekli Tepe was a secret academy of a prehistoric civilization, an astronomical observatory connected to the star system Sirius, or a cosmic map carved in stone to send a message to future generations. You can dismiss that, but look at the facts. No one knows the names of the builders, where they came from, or why they disappeared. We only know they left behind something we still don't understand. You stand silently within the stone circle. A cycle of humanity ended here, where we might have begun, or ended, a previous cycle. An archaeologist once whispered softly at sunset at Göbekli Tepe, maybe this wasn't the first structure. Maybe it was the second time humanity learned how to build something sacred. And if you feel this temple is a gentle whisper from the past, then get ready. The next chapter will take you to Peru, where giant drawings can only be seen from the sky. And the question is, why did ancient people send messages to someone up above? You're in the Nazca plains of southern Peru. Beneath your feet is reddish-brown, barren, and almost lifeless soil. But on this ground, just a few steps from where you stand, are strange lines stretching for hundreds of yards, dozens of yards wide. And if you climb up high or fly into the sky, you'll see a giant spider, a hummingbird, a whale, a monkey, a tree, a six-fingered hand, spirals, and straight lines like runways stretching for miles. You're not mistaken. These are the Nazca lines, giant geoglyphs created over 2,000 years ago that can only be seen from the air. You look down. Each line was created by clearing away the darker surface stones to reveal the lighter soil underneath, creating a sharp contrast. There's no paint, no carving, no walls. Just messages for someone looking down from the sky. Archaeologists still haven't agreed on how the Nazca people, without hot air balloons or airplanes, could create such geometrically precise figures. And more importantly, why did they do it? There are over 800 straight lines, 300 geometric shapes, and about 70 figures of living creatures. Some are up to 30 miles long. Some are perfectly straight as if drawn by a laser. Some intersect, spiral, and converge at specific points. You stand in the middle of the desert and feel as if this place was not made to be seen from the ground. A classic theory suggests this is an astronomical map or a calendar for tracking the rainy season for agriculture. That sounds reasonable, right? But then, there are figures that don't match any astronomical patterns. There are animals that aren't native to South America, and there are lines that look like airport runways, too long, too straight, and leading nowhere. In 1968, author Eric von Däniken shook the world with a shocking theory. The Nazca people created these lines to communicate with gods who came from the sky. Immediately, a wave of controversy erupted. Science refuted it, but the public was fascinated, because truly, there's something here that you can't take your eyes off of. Some researchers point out that the Nazca monkey figure has a coiled tail and long arms, characteristic of a species not found in South America, but in Southeast Asia. The bird figure has features of a species only found in the Amazon, hundreds of miles away. Some figures can only be fully seen from an altitude of over 1,000 feet, which means they couldn't be checked with the naked eye from the ground. You start to feel breathless, as if someone left behind silent symbols spread across the sand, and they remain intact, not erased by 2,000 years of wind and dust. No one lived there. No tents. No sacrificial sites, just giant tracks for distant eyes. An archaeologist once said, Nazca wasn't meant to be seen from the ground. It was a performance sent up to the universe. You remember, many ancient cultures share a common motif: visitors from the sky, teachers of light, gods riding silver dragons. Was Nazca a landing strip, a giant billboard, a wordless song sent to the stars, or simply prayers sent to someone they believed was watching? You step into the middle of the spider figure, your feet right at the intersection of two lines stretching for dozens of yards. The sky above is silent. No signals. No reply. But you can't deny it. Nazca wasn't made for you. It was made for someone higher up. And if you thought Nazca was a whisper from the desert, the next part will be a scream from the jungle. Stones weighing hundreds of tons fitted together like Lego bricks, with no mortar, no cement, and no one knows how they were put in place. You are standing on a hilltop overlooking the city of Cusco, Peru, the sacred capital of the ancient Inca Empire. The cold mountain wind cuts through your jacket, but what gives you goosebumps isn't the weather, but the sight before you. A massive stone wall, with blocks weighing up to 120 tons, fitted together so tightly it's as if they could melt and fuse on their own. This is Sacsayhuamán, an ancient stone fortress located at an altitude of nearly 12,140 feet in the Andes. The Inca called this place the Fortress of the Gods. You get closer. Each stone, with no fixed shape, has strange curves and angles, but there is not a single gap between them. No mortar, no cement, no wooden pegs. You try to slip a piece of paper between them. It won't fit. A razor blade. It won't pass. Each stone weighs dozens of tons, yet they interlock like pieces of a three-dimensional puzzle. The classic question echoes again. How did they do this? The Inca knew metallurgy. They had a basic transportation system, but they had no wheels, no engines, no cranes. So how did they cut, grind, lift, and fit these massive polygonal stones in a zigzag pattern with a precision that even modern technology struggles to replicate? Some scholars offer plausible theories, such as carving the stones to fit pre-made wooden templates, or grinding them with smaller stones and water over many years. They also suggest a process of trial and error, cutting each block until it fit perfectly. But if you look closely, there are no signs of cutting, testing, or corrections. They all fit together as if they were created at the same time. And then, something even stranger. Some of the stones here have rounded edges, as if the rock softened during the fabrication process. Ancient Andean legends speak of a mysterious liquid, the sap of a divine bird's plant, that could soften stone to be molded like clay. Many scoffed at this, but some botanists are seriously investigating whether any plant could secrete an enzyme that breaks down basalt rock structure. To date, there is no definitive answer, but the idea is no longer completely dismissed. You continue walking on the large stone platform, feeling like you're on the body of a giant fossilized creature. Here the walls aren't straight, the stones aren't square, the paths are uneven. But everything has a logic, as solid as a rock. Sacsayhuamán has withstood powerful earthquakes that have toppled many modern structures. And then you hear a more haunting detail. Sacsayhuamán is not alone. Throughout the Cusco region, you see similar walls, lying beneath Spanish structures built after the fall of the Inca. This leads to the question, were the Inca really the first builders? Some scholars suggest that the Inca found these even more ancient stone walls and built on top of them. Perhaps this is the legacy of a pre-Inca civilization, even one that predates recorded history in South America. A local archaeologist once said, "The Inca were masters, but they may not have been the originators. Perhaps they were just the last ones who understood how stone could become alive." You stand silently before the wall. The Andean wind blows through your hair. The sky is high and blue, and you can't help but think, if stone can melt, then can the Earth's memory retain things we have forgotten? And then you'll come to the next chapter. No more stones, no more temples, but a lost library. Alexandria, a place where, if everything hadn't been burned, humanity might have reached Mars 1,000 years ago. You're standing in Alexandria, Egypt, a city famous not only for bearing the name of Alexander the Great, but also for once being the greatest center of knowledge in the ancient world. But what you're looking for is no longer here. No traces remain, no foundation, not a single scroll. You're looking for the Library of Alexandria, once known as the Google of the ancient world. According to legend, the library was built in the 3rd century BCE during the reign of Pharaoh Ptolemy I, a student of Alexander. The goal? Simple: to collect all of humanity's knowledge. Sound arrogant? Listen to this number: nearly 1 million papyrus scrolls containing poetry, mathematics, astronomy, medicine, geography, religion, history, philosophy, and more, from Egypt, India, Greece, Babylon, China, Ethiopia, and beyond. Every ship that docked in Alexandria was inspected. All books, leather scrolls, and written documents were temporarily confiscated and copied, with the originals kept in the library. You're imagining it right. The Library of Alexandria was a global storage mechanism, operated by the ancient Egyptian government. And then, everything disappeared. No one knows exactly who destroyed the library. There are theories that in 48 BCE, Julius Caesar's army burned the port of Alexandria, and the fire spread to the library. Or that in the 3rd century, conflicts between Christianity and ancient religions led to the destruction of these pagan beacons. Or that in the 7th century, when Muslim armies entered Egypt, what was left of the library was wiped out. But strangely, there are no detailed records describing the destruction, no precise descriptions of the number of books, no one who claims to have seen it before it vanished. You might ask, so, was it even real? And that's the scary part. All ancient records agree on the library's existence, but no one dared to recount its death. It disappeared, as if it had never existed. But the consequences are clear. Some historians estimate that if the knowledge of Alexandria had not been destroyed, humanity might have invented the telescope, the printing press, antibiotics, and traveled to space by the 10th century. That means we could be living in the year 3025, not 2025. You feel a cold chill run down your spine, not from the wind, but from the realization that this civilization might have been wiser than we think, and what we call new inventions might just be fragmented memories being rediscovered. There are rumors that some copies of the Alexandria scrolls were hidden in monasteries, secret vaults, or smuggled to Asia, Africa, and Central America. Some radical theorists believe the library was never burned, but was intentionally archived to prevent humanity from accessing it all at once. Who would have the power to do that? You wonder. And that question is the whole mystery. A philosopher once wrote, "When you burn a library, you don't just kill knowledge, you kill the future that could have been." You stand in the modern Alexandria Square, where only a stone pillar called Pompey's Pillar stands alone like a finger pointing to the sky. There is no library, no trace. Only the void of a dream that was once very real. And if you think losing one library was enough, prepare for the next chapter, where Tibetan monks tell of massive book caves underground which hold all of history, but have never been opened. You are standing amidst the majestic mountains of Tibet. The air is thin, cold, and so silent that the sound of your footsteps echoes through the valley. Ahead is the Dunhuang Monastery, a part of the ancient Silk Road that connected east and west through paths of sand, stone, and legend. But what you're looking for isn't visible in the light. It lies behind a false wall, in a small room never listed on the monastery map. You have just found Library Cave 17, which a monk accidentally discovered in 1900, and the world has never been the same since. You step inside. The room is small, less than 100 square feet, but it's filled from floor to ceiling with over 50,000 scriptures, documents, maps, paintings, carvings, secret teachings, historical records, and even texts and scripts that have never been identified. The strange thing? No one knows why the room was sealed. No one knows who built it. No one knows why this knowledge was hidden away. There are theories that the monks hid the texts for fear of war, or that the Tibetans believed only a generation pure enough should have access to this knowledge. A prophecy once read, "When the world has forgotten everything, these scrolls will be read again." You pick up a scripture. It's not the Buddhism you're familiar with, not Taoism. It's a mixture of knowledge that transcends cultural boundaries. Some texts describe strange celestial bodies, cycles of Earth's destruction and rebirth, maps of sunken continents, and especially a network of underground caves believed to be the library of the ancient undying masters. Sound like a myth? But there are detailed records of their locations, stone door mechanisms, and unlocking codes. Many researchers believe that Tibet is not just a place for preserving faith, but also a repository of an unbroken stream of memory from a pre-human civilization. The lamas do not deny this. They simply smile and say, some questions should not be answered with words. They must be heard in silence. In 1907, Aurel Stein, a Hungarian-British explorer, secretly took thousands of manuscripts from Cave 17 out of Tibet and brought them to London, and most have yet to be deciphered. Among them are maps of cosmic circles, descriptions of sound that can move objects, the names of cosmic masters who have never appeared in any religion, and documents about those who have heard the stones speak. You start to understand. Perhaps the ancient world didn't believe in gods as we thought. They might have interacted with, collaborated with, or been taught by something we don't yet have the words to name. An old lama once said with his eyes closed, "The masters never leave, they just change places and quietly wait to be asked at the right time." You leave the library cave. Light snow begins to fall. It feels like you've just spoken with books that have souls. But in your heart, a question gently taps like a temple bell. How many other library caves are there? Is there a place that holds the entire history that has been stripped from human memory? And if you were moved by these 1,000-year-old scrolls, then the next chapter will take you to a place where memory is carved into molten rock. A mysterious plateau in Bolivia, where the rock surface looks like it was burned by plasma fire, and the drill holes are so perfect that even robots would be jealous. You're standing on a dry plateau in Bolivia, the Altiplano, where the air is so thin you struggle to breathe even walking slowly. But that's not what's making your heart race. Before you is Pumapunku, part of the Tiwanaku archaeological complex. But what makes this place stand out isn't its scale, but its defiance of architectural logic. You bend down. A massive H-shaped block of stone, over 3 feet thick and weighing dozens of tons, has been cut, drilled, and edged with near-perfect precision. The corners are square, the grooves are symmetrical, and the cylindrical drill holes are as perfect as those made by modern CNC machines. But this is andesite, one of the hardest types of rock on the planet, and this structure is believed to have existed for at least 1,500 years. You try placing your hand on a stone edge. It feels like touching a freshly cast metal surface. The grooves are smooth, deep, and so precise that many modern mechanical engineers have to shake their heads. An archaeologist described it as if the stone was softened, poured into a mold, and then hardened. But this is natural stone, not fired, not cast. So, how did they do it? The traditional answer involves copper tools, ropes, and a lot of time and effort. You tilt your head. Copper can't cut andesite, and there are no signs of trial and error. No mistakes, no corrections. A modern engineer tried to replicate an H-block from Pumapunku with machines. It took weeks, and the precision still wasn't as good. What's even stranger is the modular design. The H-shaped blocks can be fitted together like Lego, creating a stable structure without any mortar. This means it wasn't a haphazard project. This was planned architecture with standards, blueprints, and a purpose. But designed for whom? And why is it scattered about as if it was just destroyed by an unknown force? Some researchers theorize that a catastrophic earthquake destroyed the structure, or a meteorite impact, or even some kind of prehistoric weapons test. Sound far-fetched, but don't forget, at an altitude of nearly 13,000 feet, this area is not suitable for farming, has no significant water source, and there's no practical reason to build a massive ceremonial center. So why choose this place? Some local legends say that Pumapunku was built by giants, the children of gods who came from the stars, in a single night, and was then destroyed by the wrath of the heavens. Sounds like a myth? Perhaps. But you can't deny that someone accomplished something we still can't explain. You look around. The blocks, once placed with intention, are now scattered as if someone deliberately dismantled them. There are no records, no voices, only memory carved into stone like a warning or a lesson. An archaeologist once exclaimed, "Pumapunku doesn't need to be explained with words. You just have to stand in the middle of it and feel the helplessness of reason. You fall silent. The high plateau wind is biting cold. The red sun sets behind the distant mountain ranges. This is no longer archaeology. This is the rediscovery of something beyond time." And if you thought Pumapunku was the pinnacle of stone engineering, then get ready for the final chapter, where all the mysteries are connected, not by evidence, but by one final question. Are we the first, or are we just children who have just woken up in a loop that began millennia ago? You sit in the darkness, in a quiet room, but your mind is not still. It's flying through unopened tombs, stone-carved temples, buried libraries, and drawings that can only be seen from the heavens. A question, like an echo from the earth itself, rings out. Who are we, really, in the flow of history? If what you've seen is true, then it seems we are not the first to discover wisdom, art, architecture, or religion. We are just the finders of a buried legacy, calling it myth, because we don't yet understand. From Göbekli Tepe to Kailasa, from Nazca to Alexandria, from Longyou to Pumapunku, these structures all share one classic trait. They do not fit the from low to high progression of development described in textbooks. Many traditional scholars try to insert them into the timeline, distorting, bending, and rationalizing, but in the end, the stones remain as heavy as the silence of history. Perhaps there was a civilization before us, not advanced in the modern sense, but developed in a different direction. One of energy, resonance, symbolism, and knowledge accumulated through feeling rather than tools. We call it mythology. But what happens when myth is the last remaining record? You wonder, if we are entering an age of AI, space travel, and nanotechnology, what would happen if humanity were wiped out in a day, as the ancients might have been? Would future generations look at our iPhones, our hydroelectric dams, our high-speed rail systems, and call them relics of the gods? A philosopher once wrote, "History does not follow a straight line. It is a spiral, and in each cycle, humanity must relearn the old lessons in a new way." You swallow hard, because if that's true, then we are not just explorers, but also beings who are being tested once again. Perhaps all those stone structures were not messages for the gods, but messages for ourselves, the future children of an old civilization. We once knew, we once understood, but we forgot. Don't forget again. You look back. It's not just stone, not just drawings or codes. It's a quiet symphony, evoking a formless nostalgia, a memory not found in books, but hidden in the bloodstream of humanity. You feel a chill, not from the wind, but because you've just realized we may not be the first civilization. And perhaps we won't be the last. Close your eyes. It feels like you've just traveled through thousands of years, through imagination, breath, and hands tracing every carving in the stone. The vivid images in your mind begin to fade. The towering stone pillars, the spirals in the desert, the sealed tombs, the stone walls fitted together like a promise never spoken. You can still hear the echo of unanswered questions, but they no longer worry you. They are like the deep heartbeat of the earth, steady, calm, ancient. Let these stories melt into the night. Let the wind whisper to you in the voice of the ancients. Maybe they don't expect us to understand right away. They just hope we are still listening. Now, close your eyes. Take a deep breath. All the mysteries are still there. But you have changed.